Welcome to How Now, the podcast where we talk about how to live in the now. And here's your host, Kim Martin Raymond.
Peace and blessings, and welcome to another edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. I am your host, Kim Martin Raymond. I am a minister, spiritual life coach, author, and founder of Redefining You, LLC, where I help my clients to realign themselves, mind, body, and spirit. So we are back, and tonight we are talking about the keys to unlocking success for our youth. We know that this is a season where we're hearing a lot of buzzwords. We're hearing a lot about mentoring. We're hearing a lot about coaching. We're hearing a lot about tutoring. We're hearing a lot of things that we're doing for our adults, but we know that our children are just as important. Their keys to success, their mental health and well-being is something that is crucial and critical during this time, especially during this time of pandemic, because we're not out of the woods. We know we're going into the holidays. We know that the children have started back to school and they'll be coming up on a break. And we just want to make sure that our children are in a great headspace. And so I have a wonderful guest here with me who's going to talk a little bit about unlocking those keys to success. And as is customary with the How Now podcast, I'm going to ask him to introduce himself at this time.
Wow, thank you so much. Let me first say thank you. This is my first time being a guest on a podcast. So I'm making history.
All right. Well, it started with me.
Yes, it started right here for me. So a great big thank you to you for giving me this opportunity. My name is Ecanoa Jones. Yes, I know it's a very uncommon first name with a very common last name. But I'm married to my wife, my college sweetheart, Kimberly. We attended Albany State University, the unspeakable Albany State University in Albany, Georgia. And we have 3 kids. I guess I shouldn't call them kids now because my last child just graduated high school in 2020, last year. The start of the pandemic. So, but they still call me my daddy, still call mom, mommy. So even though they're 21, 20, and 18. So, yeah, again, with such an uncommon name, I grew up, as you can imagine, I've heard it all. I mean, the kids, they were tough.
Absolutely.
They were tough. So I had to learn how to hold my head up. For lack of better words. But I would like to say this because it is a moment of affirmation for me. All my life, people have been asking me, what does my name mean? And I've been unable to say I didn't know. And it's been a great conversation starter. I mean, I absolutely hated my name early because of what I went through. But over time, I learned to appreciate it because, again, it's been a great conversation starter. And I guess I can say it made me quite popular because people have to take time to learn how to pronounce it. And by the time they mess it up 10 times, it locks in. And so to this day, I'm constantly running into people who are saying, hey, Ecanoa. And I'm like, who are you?
Right.
But I'm having to play it off.
Right.
But once they learned my name, it just, so my dad named me. He got my name from Noah's Ark in the Bible.
Yes.
And he dropped the H and he kept the N-O-A. And now I don't know the mindset behind this, but his name is Clarence. And he took the last 2 letters of his name, which is E-C.
Okay.
And he added an A and came up with Ecanoa. And it wasn't until this last year. Now, my dad is a talker. I mean, literally 2 hours on the phone, I might get 2 words in, literally. And he's a talker, but up until this time in my life, he's never told me the meaning of my name until last year. And it was such a moment of affirmation because he said my name means builder and that I'm a builder. And it was such a moment of affirmation because I've noticed that that's what I've been doing throughout my whole life.
Look at that.
And I didn't know how to put it together. So it came full circle for me. And so now it's sort of just the wind behind my sail to give me that push to say, now I have understanding. And now I can respond when people say, what does Ecanoa mean? So I just wanted to say that for our listening audience.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, and that's something that's critical. When I started this show back in December of last year, and I thought to have people to introduce themselves, it was just for that reason, to be able to affirm who they are and how they present themselves to the world. And so now you have an opportunity to let people know that that's what your name means. Your name means builder, and in building, you're building foundations. And so I love that, because really you're known also as the mindset mentor.
Yes.
And so, that's exciting, because when you're talking about building foundations, you're talking about helping people to determine where their space is in life. That is a building, that is foundational, and that is what you do. You're not Bob the Builder, you're Ecanoa.
Right.
And that's beautiful. It's beautiful to be able to affirm that, and to have this space to be able to let people know that that's who you are and that's what your name means. So that's awesome. I'm excited about that. Yes. So again, we're so happy that you're here with us. And again, we're going to be talking about the keys to unlocking success for children. So first, tell me a little bit about your business and how things were going prior to the pandemic.
Well, prior to the pandemic, I was running my piano percussion instructional program. I was a vendor for quite a few schools within the private and public school sector. Okay. And so it was moving, smooth sailing for me. And long story short, I started out years ago, and I won't name the location, but it was a Walmart. And I went to the parking lot, and this one maybe, I don't know, 16 years ago, maybe. And I passed out over 500 flyers.
Wow.
Absolutely no one called me back. Because I went to school for business, but music was my gift. So I wanted to somehow merge the two together to see what, how things unfolded. So again, I passed out over 500 flyers and no one emailed me, no one called me back. So that was like, is this really what I,
right.
Not one person. But long story short, I was given access to up to 80 schools from 2 Metro Atlanta district school districts. Now I only solidified 16 contracts, but that was, hey,
started at zero.
Right. So that opened up doors for me. It gave me my freedom because I was able to hire subcontractors, and that's when I started writing. So I've written 6 self-help books.
Nice.
And I started my Success You Can See T apparel also during that time. So that's what life was before the pandemic.
All right. Awesome. Yes. I mean, and that's beautiful. You said, I too have a degree in business and have been in education for, oh my goodness, going on 20 years. And so, yeah, it's interesting how you start one way and then somehow there's a pivot that takes place. Right. And that's exactly, I'm sure, what happened when we talk about this pandemic too. We start out in one mindset and start out going in one direction, and then it's just like, let me go here, and then something happens, and then all of a sudden there's this pivot. So here it was, you had these contracts, you had things going with your music, you had people who you were working with, and like you said, things were flourishing. You were finding your groove. You were finding that passion, and that's a difficult thing to do sometimes, because just like you said, sometimes our degree tends to determine what we do. But when you have a degree in business, it leaves the door open, because I had a general business degree. And so it was like, okay, it's not really accounting and it's not really HR and it's not really, so it's like, okay, what am I doing with this? What am I doing with this? So like you said, you did your contracts, things were going well. And then 2020.
2020. Yes.
And what happened there?
Well, I'm a futuristic thinker. So I believe I'm naturally that way, but I think living life as an entrepreneur, it really developed that in me.
Mm-hmm.
Trading hours for dollars on one end, and to making income while you're at home, watching a movie. That's
right.
That's and so that was being a futuristic thinker. I would like to say that I was somewhat prepared in a sense, not for the pandemic, but prepared for challenges and changes and, things that you don't foresee coming. So again, as many people would say, that the pandemic was a springboard for me. It thrust me out there because, to be honest with you, maybe 4 to 5 years before the pandemic, I felt an inner gravitational pulling, tugging on me to jump. And as an entrepreneur, I've done it every time, but that fear and faith, it's a real thing.
Yes, it is.
So I have faith here, but then I got family bills and all of these things over here, but I feel something calling me and pulling me, but this is comfortable. Yes. And this is convenient and this is flowing, but this is uncertain,
right.
Seemingly.
Right.
And so I'm battling that. And each year, I just felt that pulling, and I heard God saying, I'm with you, go. And I said, not this time. I'll go right back to the schools. The next year, same thing. I said, well, I'm not ready. I'm ready, but I'm not ready. But the pandemic came and I had no choice.
Right.
School stopped and my money stopped.
And just it becomes a matter of, I was going to do this, and it's interesting because you said it was a springboard for you. And for some people, they felt like the springboard was snatched out from under them and they just hit the ground. So it was like, right, wait a minute, so just like you said, that there's that pulling. And I think sometimes what happens is, if we're not obedient to the call, he's like, okay, I'm gonna stand over here and wait, see what you're gonna do. Right. Okay. And if you don't do, eventually I'm gonna keep nudging you to the edge of that cliff. Right. And eventually, it's almost like the pandemic came and it was kind of like a elbow bump. Right. Right. And now, like you said, you had no choice. And so, yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
You know what? I sometimes think if I would have obeyed the first time, the second, the third, where would I have been going into the pandemic?
Right.
Because the pandemic, I went from here to, it hit me.
Right.
And though I'm a futuristic thinker and I'm thinking ahead, and that's natural within me, but where would I have been if I would have, but through it all, God is good. His grace is good.
He is. Yes, so, he is. Because just like you said, who would have ever imagined that schools would close? Schools have been around our whole life since the beginning. Schools have been there. So he's like, what do you mean? You would have never thought restaurants would have ever closed because people are always going to eat. You would have never thought that schools are going to close because children are always going to be educated. They're never going to close a school for everybody at the same time around the whole world. Hello, it happened. But it happened. And so what we thought was sure footing, just like you said, you went from uncertain and you stayed with certain, and then the certain became uncertain. So now it's like, oh, who could have imagined? I don't think anybody, I don't know if anybody in all those people who foresee things could have seen this coming.
Right, exactly.
But here we were. 2020 came in. Here we are. And so now you have to make a move.
Right.
So what'd you do?
Yeah. Well, I had worked so hard up until that time. I didn't realize how much I had worked until I had nothing but time on my hand. And I'm looking like, wow, I created that. I did that. I couldn't believe it. And I was the one who created all of these things. So I said, wow, it's time for me to give shape, form to this and give structure to it. And because I had already been, during that time as a vendor, people would ask me would I mentor their child or their cousin or family member. And I would look at them like, I'm not but that's what they saw into me. I've even had people say, are you preaching yet? I said, yet. What do you mean yet? Because I'm a musician and oftentimes, just that's kind of, you've seen that. But I say yet, and I would hear people would say those things. And this sometimes people that I've only known for a short time,
Right.
but they will often ask me to mentor their family member or friend or something. And I was just wondering, what did they see? Wow. And I would go places and I would be honored unexpectedly. And someone would say, well, I want to appreciate this person or say this. And I'm sitting there not even looking for it, probably not paying attention. And then I hear my name. Where's this coming from? And that happened quite a few times. And I think those were the signposts, those directives, those nudges that was driving me to my purpose, because during those years I was in my gifts. I can do music in my sleep, but it drove me to purpose, and I think that's where I am now during this pandemic. I'm more so operating in purpose and not just simply my gifts. Because, the gifts are given without repentance. They're there. They're just, you have them, regardless of how you choose to use them,
Right.
But it's just something I can do. I can play the piano. I can, I've always made a living doing that. So, but this is more so of a season of purpose for me.
Absolutely. I mean, and you make a wonderful point, because just like you said, well, and I think a lot of it comes with humility, because just like you said, you don't expect, the recognition. You weren't looking for it. And so I guess, and that's the beautiful part, that when we have gifts and people acknowledge them, and all of a sudden we're like, huh, what? I'm doing this. I didn't know that I was even capable of that,
Right.
This just comes naturally for me. So, I don't think about it as anything, that's a big deal. So just like you said, you weren't looking for the recognition, and that's the beautiful part, because people see it in you. They see those additional things in you, and we don't even notice them because they come naturally, and they're so organic for us.
Right.
That we don't, it's not a second thought.
Right.
And then when somebody brings it to your attention, I was like, yeah, that's like, what? Oh, really? Yes. Because you don't, it's not anything, it's effortless. And that's the beautiful part about it.
Right.
It's those things that are innate in us, that are effortless, that we're just like, oh, okay. No, you can make money off of that. Or you can do something. You can do something with that.
Right. Right.
Questions. But just like you said, then it becomes purposeful.
It does.
Because then you start saying, oh, okay, wait a minute now. How can I go about helping people? And how can I go about, taking this gift and this talent that comes so naturally to me, and transitioning into something that's more purposeful and more meaningful for those who are around me, that can glean from that. So
right.
That's
exactly.
Awesome. It's awesome to get to that space. So you get there and you say, okay, I've operated in my gifts. I've been doing this for a while, and now there's an opportunity to stretch a little bit more beyond where I was.
Right.
What did that look like for you?
Well, as I stated, I looked at all that I had accomplished and created, and I wanted to create a business, or extend my business, not create, but more so extend, because even as a piano teacher or a percussion instructor, I would have a theme for each year, and it would either be, if I can think it, I can play it. Yeah. If I can think it, I can sing it. It was always, if I can think it, what I understand in my mind comes out through my fingers. So that was my approach as a teacher. to teach students how to think, not necessarily how to play an instrument. So I took that and all of the experience I gained from transitioning from school to school, it had very little to do with music. Again, that was just second nature for me. But understanding the difference in culture, understanding the different adaptation, the difference in leadership, the difference in having favor, the difference in being tolerated versus celebrated, all those differences in people skills. I mean, it was just so much that I was learning at the environments, learning to go in as an environment, knowing when to be furniture, knowing when to work the room. There's some rooms you go in and you just need to zip it,
That's right.
Observe. And there are others that you can sort of socialize and work the room. Just learning all of that. And I was taught at an early age to go into every environment as a student. And so looking at the setting, the scenery, the environment, looking at the climate, the tone, the atmosphere, the conversations, all of those things. Though I was going in as a music teacher, I'm sure most people didn't know that my brain was just really absorbing, So once the pandemic hit, now I said, let me take this and I'm going to turn my books into modules and create memberships. Looking back early on, I needed mentorship. Now I had a support system. I had people who would give me little nuggets of wisdom and, here and there. But I needed someone to hold my hand, and I just needed, and I didn't have that. And so I do have a heart for being an ongoing support for individuals, not just, I'm here for a moment, say something and I'm gone. Just that relationship. So I started my membership courses so that it's on a month-to-month basis, on a week-to-week basis. Now, students will, or individuals, enrolled will work at their own pace, of course, but it's an ongoing relationship that I have with them on a month-to-month basis. And it's based off of all that I've things that I've talked about in terms of those experiences.
Okay. Yeah. So most of them come from being students of yours initially, and then it kind of developed from there. Most of them were people who you had started to establish a relationship with.
Well, that's how it started. Yeah. So I had a small group of those that I've sort of started with, and it sort of kind of just grew from there. That I've known in the past. Yes.
Awesome. And so, and I think that's a beautiful thing too, to just talk about the progression of how things just slowly began to manifest for you, because everything, things stem from relationships. They stem from our ability to connect with people. And you were able to connect with people through music. You were able to connect with them through mindset. And I think that's wonderful. I think that something that you said that's still resonating with me is when you talk about being furniture and knowing when to be furniture and when to work the room. I love that because that's exactly what we need to do. Sometimes as we're growing, as we're seeking to do things differently, sometimes we do have to do that. We have to go into different spaces. But we have to go in, again, with that mindset of looking around and saying, okay, let me observe and see where I'm at so that I can position myself to where I'm going. Or sometimes you have to be quiet and still sometimes so that you know what questions to ask.
Right.
You said you knew you needed help. You knew that there was something that you wanted to do different, but you knew that it required the help of others in order for you to be able to make that move.
Right. Exactly.
So that's something I think that's key. So like you said, you got into the mentorship, you got into being able to develop those relationships over time. And I think that's a beautiful thing too, because you want people to not feel abandoned. It appears to me that you met them where they were and just continue to walk with them in the process.
Right.
And then I'm sure you had to have people to walk with you in the process as well. You had to have, I'm sure you had the support of your wife and your family, you know,
Yes,
but
absolutely.
business it's a different animal. And you have to kind of start working your way through. So
Yeah.
so in starting to develop your business past the pandemic, what were some of the things that people were coming to you with? What were some of the questions, or what were some of the things that you were seeing, more often than not as a request from people when they were asking for mentorship?
Well, here's the thing. People are inquisitive, excuse me. They are inquisitive. But when it comes to implementing, when it comes to putting it into action,
Right.
You have some people have an appetite and others have a hunger. There's a difference. And I think I had to learn to discern the difference, because you don't want to, I have to work with people who are hungry, not just have an appetite and they're here today and they're gone once they get the answer or get whatever they wanted from you, and then they're off to the next. But I believe in relationships, but I think that was the biggest thing. My biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
From people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they were coming to you and just saying, I mean, were they asking for career advice? Well, we were talking about the youth. So were they asking for more direction in trying to figure out what their purpose was, or were they, what were the kind of things that they were seeking?
Well, most of them didn't know. Most of them they don't know. And so they're just kind of stuck in limbo, sort of just that's what I've noticed. Or they're just sort of following the model or emotionally driven. I just want to do this because, or a YouTube sensation because this person is on YouTube and all of these subscribers, or I want to make beats for the rappers. These things that we see that.
Yes, because that's all they see.
That's all they see. And I say, wow, it's interesting. It lets me know that so many of us were not taught to discover. We were taught to decide, and that's a big difference. And or we discovered as a child, but as we get older, we stop discovering because we feel that, hey, I'm here now, or I'm working, or I have a family, and I'm here, so I don't no longer need to continue discovering. So I think, to answer your question, most don't know. They don't know.
Yeah.
Just sort of in limbo.
But they come because they know they need something. They're just like,
they need something.
They need something, right. And they just don't know what it is. I guess it's almost like most adults too. We get stuck. After a while. We get stuck. We like you said, we make the decision to take care of our families and to stay in this job or stay in this career because we know that we need to sustain what we have. And we miss that discovery phase, just like you said. And that's so critical in knowing that in that discovery phase, we have choices. Right. And we're so limited by the choices because we're so limited by what we see. Just like you said, social media says, be a sensation, do a beat, do something crazy so that you get attention, but that's not the long term. Right. That's not going to be sustainable over time. You have your 15 minutes of fame. Yes, some go longer than that, but eventually someone else comes along and does something just as beatful or just as incredible, and then your tomorrow's story. So right. I love that you're teaching them to get beyond the point of just making a decision to do this or that, but to discover that there are so many other opportunities to do other things that are going to sustain them long term, right?
Right.
I love that. And so tell me a little bit more about your program that you're doing for your youth.
Well, again, in regards to the memberships, the mentoring memberships, I do have 3 memberships. The first one is Aim High Miss High, where I've broken the two words aim high down into an acronym where there are 7 principles. Articulate, investigate, motivate, hibernate, innovate, gravitate, and helpmate. Those are the 7 principles for the aim high, miss high mentoring. And then I have the success built on the principles of what not to do. Here's what I understand about success or becoming successful. We have to first become successful inside or within before we can see it manifest outwardly or externally. And I found that oftentimes we don't know what to do. You're not going to know what to do, but it's important to know what not to do. One bad choice can be life altering, one bad decision. And I think it's okay. We can accept the fact that, hey, I don't know what to do, because we've all, if we're honest, we've all been there.
That's right. But
it can become dangerous because in those moments of not knowing what to do, you may become vulnerable to things because there's a void and there's something missing. And so the first thing that comes that's a little bit enticing, or you jump to it and right. So that membership talks about those principles of what not to do in the moments when you don't know what to do. It talks about knowing what not to do when you don't know what to do. I think I said that correctly. Yeah, and the last membership is our sticks and stones. Our sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will. Something you are saying is determining what you are experiencing. That's been the absolute story of my life. I believe we have the power to speak our future into existence. Now, easier said than done.
Yes.
But it's more so speaks to that principle, that goal.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I absolutely love that. I love that aim high. I love that what not to do, because sometimes you're looking for what to do, but the answer is in what not to do.
Yes.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. You think about, you know that it's not good to put your hand on that stove because it burns you.
Right.
So at least the next time you're not gonna stick your hand up there.
Right.
So you know what not to do. You may not know what to do. You may feel enticed. Oh, that the fire looks so pretty. It's such a beautiful color. It looks so nice. But not to stick your hand up there.
Right.
Because if you do, it's gonna hurt, it's gonna burn, it's gonna leave a mark. So know those things. And so, yeah, sometimes it's a matter of looking at it in reverse and being able to say, okay, I know what not to do. Just like when you think about toxic relationships and things like that, you know what you don't want. You may not know what you want in a relationship, but you don't want this person. You know what things are deal breakers.
Right.
So that makes sense. That makes sense what you're saying when you're talking about doing that. You may not know what to do, but you know what not to do.
Right.
And that, hey, that those are words to live by. And those are things that children definitely need to know, or they need to make that assessment and say, okay, I know to say no to this. I may not have all of the answers why, but at least I know, no, this is a deal breaker. No, this is something that's not going to be for my good.
Right.
So that's an excellent program in being able to do that. I love that you have those 7 principles and that you break those down. Aim high. And if you want to know more about it, we're going to let you know at the end of the show, because then you can find out from him. We're not going to repeat it.
Right.
You're going to have to listen to it in the replay, but we definitely, I love that you have those 7 principles, because it's important that our children know what not to do. And then we can start working on those other things. And then, of course, those sticks and stones. We've all heard that before. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but they say the words will never hurt you. That's so far from the truth, unfortunately, because, the big buzzword of the day now is empathy, where we can't discount how someone feels, and words hurt. And what it reminds me of is when we think about impact over intention. Okay, sometimes we don't intend to say something to hurt somebody's feelings, but what winds up happening is it
Right.
stings, it
Right.
leaves a mark, it leaves a stain. And sometimes those things are sustaining. And what we do when we said something not intentionally, and then we turn around and we apologize, but we don't heal the wound. We've
Right.
already we've left the mark and walked away. And just
Right.
said, well, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. You'll be all right. But no, you're not.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
yeah. And of course with social media, especially for our youth, social media, and there are so many ways in which someone can say something negative. And it used to be local. You can say, oh, so-and-so farted. Oh, he's nasty. And, everybody laughed at, ew. And they said that now you can take that worldwide.
Right. Right.
They go so much further than just the playground at school or just your local community. People have said harsh words, and those words have carried all over the country.
Yes.
And so, yes, they may not break bones physically, but they break spirits.
Yes.
And so I think it's wonderful that you have programs that do that attack those things too, and let children know how they can buffer those things when they come up. Correct?
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. I believe that I believe mentorship, and this is my personal persuasion. I believe mentorship is the quickest way or the fastest way to success, not personal experience, because mentorship fundamentally is the ability to learn from the mistakes of others. We're going to learn sooner or later.
Right.
Young fools become old fools, but the day comes, we all have our day, we have to learn, but you're going to learn through a mentor or through a mistake. Now, I don't know if it's actually a mistake when you knew
right
not to do, but you did it anyway. But mentorship is the ability to learn from the mistakes of others. And so, my father used to tell me, as a teenager, son, you're going to have to learn the hard way. That was something of saying the hard way. You're going to have to learn the hard way. Why? Because obviously at that time, I chose not to listen.
right.
And so I think that's what happens. So many have to learn the hard way because the youth want to, with the social media and all of these influences, you're competing with all of that.
Right.
And to say, hey, I want to give you an opportunity to have an ongoing relationship so that you can learn from my mistakes.
Right.
So that you don't have to take this. You don't have to do it.
Right.
You don't have to.
Right.
There's another way. There's another route.
That's right. But the thing that's beautiful about that is with mentorship also is that it does two things. It allows a person to ask questions or to ask follow-up questions. When you think about, social media, you see things and you just have to speculate as to what happens after, whatever it was that you saw. Right. You can't go back and ask that person, so what happened after that happened? Did everything work out? You always see that little 2-minute clip, but you don't know what happened after that.
Right.
Right. And so you're just left to say, oh, well, everything worked out great. So now they're famous. You don't know what they had to go through. You don't know what happened the next day. You don't know what happened the next minute after that.
Right.
Because they only allowed you to see that little snippet. So the beauty in having that mentorship is that you can go back and ask that question. Okay, wow, you made that mistake. Oh, wow, that happened. And then what happened? And then what did you do? And you're in a position to be able to answer that question for them.
Right.
And so that's one of the beautiful things that I see in mentorship, that yes, you can learn from our mistake, but you can go back and ask those follow-up questions and find out what are some other things that I could have done or what can happen as a result of doing this.
Right.
So you get a little bit more of that information in doing that and being able to say, I've learned from your mistakes. But then what it also does is it allows that child to be proactive because you've asked for the help. Sometimes, just like you said, sometimes people don't have that opportunity to have that mentor, and they
Right.
have to make that mistake,
Mhm.
but if they're in a place of being proactive and not reactive,
Right.
now they can say, okay, I know that there are some mistakes that I'm going to make, but let me see if I can, avoid as many of them as possible by having someone who can be here to, to bounce my questions and my ideas and my thoughts and my concerns off of. So,
Right.
you're getting that follow-up, and you're getting that proactivity, and that's something that's unmatched.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So I love that. I love that there are programs that exist like this that are going to help our kids to get where they need to go. So what are, just a few little other suggestions that you can give for those who are possibly seeking mentorship, or those who are just looking to unlocking some of those keys to success? What are some things that you can share with our listeners, that children can do now?
Well, I would say fundamentally, I think we need to see ourselves as a seed, that everything we do is a seed. Every action is a seed. Every lack of action is a seed. Now, why do I call it a seed? Because a seed produces a harvest, right? So I think if we saw our actions, our responses, our reactions, how we live, what we do, where we go, if we saw those things as a seed that was going to produce a return or have an effect, if we saw it that way, I think we'll be more mindful as to what we do, how we do it, where we do it, when, and why. I think that fundamentally, it would help us to think a little bit better in terms of our choices, if we see ourselves as seeds, walking seeds.
I love that. And
Yeah.
that's it. It's all about growth.
Right.
It's all about growth and being able, just like you said, to do things that are going to put us in a position to reach back and to help others. And and that comes from sown seeds, and what do seeds do? They bear fruit. And
Right.
so that's absolutely critical and key in being able to be successful. Now, with regards to, the program is for children, are there any ways that parents can encourage children to consider mentorship? Because it's going to come from there, right? From the parents.
Yeah, I think all parents can relate to this. I mean, I have 3 myself that, you've been telling your child this over and over and over again. They go to school and the teacher says it one time, or the coach says it one time, and then all of a sudden they come home, Dad, guess what?
Right.
Guess what?
I only said it 11 times. Yeah.
That's only that, right. So I think, and I'll just use this example.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest son is seeing a therapist on a weekly basis. Well, it was a challenge for him. He didn't want to do it, for years. I would talk to him and he just didn't want to do it. So I said, I'll just step back and I'll wait till he's ready. And then I thought to myself, it's good for me. I'm helping others. I need to have that myself. I need to have someone that I could go to and talk to. And so I said, you know what? I went to him and I said, listen, we're going to do this together, so that he can see an example. He can see my model. Now, we don't have the same therapist, but he knows that I'm not asking him to do something that I won't do myself. And so I think parents can take that approach with, to show their child, hey, listen, Mom, Dad, I'm making efforts in this respect. To be transparent on some level. You may can't say everything.
Right.
So that the child can see that model. And it's not that you're just telling them what to do,
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's excellent. And we do want that. We want to be able to set the example for our children. We do want them to feel as though there is some solidarity there and that we're not just pushing them out and not willing to push ourselves. And so I think that that's a wonderful piece of advice for our parents who have children out there who may need mentorship or may be looking for mentorship, and just knowing that, they're not alone and that there are those opportunities out there for them. That's part of the discovery, is being able for parents to know that there are programs out here that exist that can help their children to be able to move from a place of stagnancy, because they're experiencing it less than us. We have midlife crises and all kinds of things that are going on, and the kids are suffering at a much younger age now as well, and trying to get through and to cope and to figure some things out. And it's wonderful to have programs like this where children can find those keys to success, where they can start building and start growing and start planting those seeds like you're talking about.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So before we wrap things up, I definitely would love to find out some things that you are doing in the now. One thing that we talk about here at the How Now podcast is how people are living in the now, how people are navigating in this new space that we're not quite out of yet. We're going to continue as we go into the holidays, as we go into vaccinations and all kinds of things that are going on and swirling around us. What are some things that you do to stay grounded? What are some things that you do to live in this now?
Well, every day, every morning, I give the first 8 minutes of my day, I give to prayer. The first 8 minutes, I believe the number 8 is the number for new beginnings. So the first 8 minutes of my day, that's what I do. I also read one chapter in the book of Proverbs every day. I just follow the calendar, one chapter a day. And I believe Proverbs is literally the master mentor.
Okay.
I mean, his mentorship at its best.
Yes.
So I read one chapter a day. And then I enter into, as I stated earlier, I enter into every moment, every environment as a learner, as a student. Students graduate. And I think once you graduate from preschool to elementary, middle, high, college, or whatever, we think graduation is over. But as long as we're living, we have to continue to be a student, life and family. And so I make sure I enter into every environment as a student. So to make sure when I walk away, I have a takeaway.
There you go. I love that. I absolutely love that. And it's so important. Yeah, you learn from your womb to your tomb, just like you said. Every day is a learning experience. And I love that. And that requires you being present. That requires you paying attention. So that way you don't miss those little nuggets as they come along the day, because you're caught up in worrying about other things that are going on that are going to keep you from experiencing the fruitfulness of life. So I think that is a wonderful lesson that you share. And I think that's beautiful. He said 8 minutes of prayer, then one chapter in the book of Proverbs, which, like he said, is the master mentor. And I love that. He is so, the word, can't ever get enough of that. And then as you go throughout your day, to be a student, look for those learning opportunities, look for those things that you may not know, and see how you can incorporate them into your daily life. So those are our wonderful foundational things that are going to help to create your peaceful existence. I thank you for sharing that with our listeners. Yes. Now, we definitely want to let people know how they can get in contact with you to find out about the wonderful programs that you have, and how they can possibly, have their children get involved and see about some things for themselves as well.
Sure. Well, it's quite simple. You can go to ecanoa.com. That's my name, ecanoa.com, ECANOA, and you will find all of my mentorship, the mentorship platform, and the Success You Can See tease information that I I pitch to school districts and individual schools for to help with social emotional learning and to help sort of the culture of and the environment of the school. And so that's it, ecanoa.com.
ecanoa.com. Yeah, www.ecanoa.com. Find out about the programs that he is doing and all the wonderful things that he is doing to help our children to be successful, to help our children to move beyond a place of stagnancy and to go into a place of growth where they're actually planting those seeds. Ecanoa, I thank you so much for being here with us, for sharing what you're doing in the now, for sharing all that you are doing to build, for your daddy giving you such an awesome name that is apropos to who you are, and helping to build and develop young lives, young minds, and to keep us moving and pressing forward. It's all about, like I said, creating our peaceful existence, learning how to cope, learning how to exist and navigate in this space. And it all starts with planting those seeds. So we thank you for being a master planter. We thank you for being a mentor. We thank you for your guidance and for all that you seek to do. And I wish you unlimited success in all that you do moving forward. Again, so we thank you for being here.
Wow. I'm speechless.
Well, we're glad you're here. Like I said, we're glad that you chose the How Now podcast to come on and get your feet wet. And, we're going to be hearing more about you, and we'll have you back definitely again to talk more about the things that you're doing, in the future, and the things that you are doing right now. And with that, we will conclude this session of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. And until we see you the next time, I say peace.
All right.